Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Bucco, and I am a coach with the Department of Early Childhood for the Boston Public Schools.
And I'm Maria Nocti, and I'm also a coach for the Early Childhood Department for Boston Public Schools. So welcome to our breakout session for guidance for substantially separate classroom settings in the remote world for launching Focus. This is for K0 through second grade teachers. So welcome to our session. We're hoping that today our objectives will be to guide you through the arc of Unit 1 and the big ideas, introduce you to our newly developed teacher guides, talk about scheduling and setting up the learning structures in the remote classroom. We'll point you towards some of our resources, ways for you to get your questions answered, since this is a recorded presentation, and then we'll close you out with next steps and what our department plans on for the future to support you as we move forward in this world of remote and hybrid learning.
Sorry.
So part of what we want to make sure that we cover today also is that all returning Boston strong professional learners are looking at these CRI-OP pillars, and we want to make sure that we continue to infuse in our work affirming students' racial and cultural identities and culturally responsive learning environments, which we'll really talk a lot about today, open communication with families because of the remote learning. So we just wanted to put this slide up there to continue to remind you of our focus as a Boston Public Schools system. And okay.
So today we're going to take a look at the arc of Unit 1 and big ideas for each grade level, pre-K through second. While many of the guiding questions remain the same, the arcs have been adjusted for remote and hybrid teaching and learning. Unit 1 takes place over 8 weeks for all 4 grade levels, starting with the first week's common guiding question, what is school right now? As we scroll through the next few slides, please think about what weekly questions and big ideas resonate for you. And just keep in mind that these will all be available on the slide deck that is provided for you all. So if I'm moving too quickly, you certainly can go back and take a closer look at the content. Each week, the Early Childhood Department will share grade level teacher guides with teachers. These teacher guides contain guidance and resources for planning each week in alignment with the adjusted curriculum unit arcs and content. Since the templates for each grade level are the same, we're going to take a look at sections of the guides for week 1. So you can see here in this K2 teacher guide, the first page of this, at the very top, you'll find a list of useful links. Underneath that, there's a list of the question, the unit question, and some guidance around conducting a community meeting. The community meeting is what we often call a morning meeting. And it's just important to note that there's also an invitation to lead children in a discussion as part of a community meeting. So here for week 1, the suggested discussion question is, how do you feel about this new kind of school? Each guide will have a read aloud section that will contain a link to slides or a recorded version of the day's read aloud. Any available adapted versions of curriculum books will be linked here as well. There'll be a brief description of centers or studios, and they'll be provided along with a link to a center or studio menu for the week. And we'll be taking a look at one of those menus in just a minute. Each description also includes questions for teachers, for teacher facilitation, should you choose to do conduct centers or studios as a synchronous learning time. For K2 and second grade, the guides will include links to lessons for writing, which you can see over here on the left, shared reading, foundations, strategic small groups, and stations. The pre-K guide will include a description of small group activities. All grades will have links for math activities, as well as an invitation to include storytelling and story acting. So please note that the column on the right for the teacher guides will define if that learning component is asynchronous or synchronous or both. And then sometimes that column will also include this symbol over here that you can see on the writing and drawing center description. This is an indication that that particular activity could be used as part of Seesaw. So that could be a place where you could post an activity on Seesaw, or where children could document their work on Seesaw. More information about how we're including focus activity descriptions on Seesaw will be coming soon. So just to give you a few examples here, as mentioned previously, we will be linking available adapted versions of focus curricula books, such as these on the teacher guides. So here you have an example of a Unit 1 pre-K book called Unga Bunga. You've got an example of a page from the adapted book, as well as an activity that can be done as a response to the book. Here we have K2, an adapted page example from Abuela, along with a connected communication board. Here's an example from Unit 1, first week of Focus on First, maybe something beautiful. And then here we have an example from second grade, first week of Unit 1, a letter to my teacher. Because we're in the process of adding terms of agreement to these books, they're not currently available on our early childhood website. The adapted books are intended for use in conjunction with our curriculum as needed to provide access to curriculum content for certain students. As such, we ask that they not be shared at this time outside of BPS. So here's a look at the center menu that I referenced earlier. This type of menu will also be provided for studios. So you can see here there's a list of the centers that are being offered for the week. And then this is for K2. And then it gives you a description, a brief description of the center. And so kids and families can decide which centers they want to participate on a daily basis. Here the directions are that they choose 1 or 2 centers to work on each day. Again, this can be a synchronous activity so that kids are keeping their computers on and interacting with adults from the classroom while they're working. Also, you can make a copy of this menu so that it could be customized. You can customize it on your own, the activities and the expectations for the needs of your classroom and your students. So as mentioned before, there'll be descriptions of small groups and stations for all grade levels. The stations descriptions for K2 to second grade will also include links to decodable text that can be used, as well as vocabulary words for the week. Science and engineering conversations and activities will be included in the guides for use in whole group, small group, and centers and studios. The next 5 slides have been added as reminders and resources for incorporating science into your weekly plans.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is schedules, both classroom schedules, which you see here are examples from teachers that have shared them with us, and also individual children's schedules. We suggest that both are really valuable with the population that you teach, and that you should establish a way to show both. So the next slide shows examples of some of the ways to individualize for children. We also want to note that families are going to be helping their children with the individual and the weekly and the daily schedules. So these are some good examples of ways to make it very usable for families in terms of everything being on one page, so that when they click on, they'll be able to access all the Zoom links that they're required to. Also, making sure that the timing of the schedule is up. The icons are there for help with the children. And this could be done either on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. But make sure that you find time to help families with support of this. The other pieces that we're looking at are also visual supports for helping with components of the day, like center time, morning meeting, and that just like you would do in a on hybrid version, you'll be able to click on icons and show them when a portion of your daily morning meeting has been finished. The same way with being able to look at a schedule and to see what's been done and what hasn't been done is also a way for you to be able to help children and families to know what the expectations are, what the work is, and then what they have to do and when it's finished. So the most important thing about setting up these learning structures is that even before you start remote learning with your families and your children, you should set up one-on-one meetings with the families so that you can help them set up the home structure and expectations, help define what synchronous and asynchronous learning times mean for families and for children, help them with the choreography of the both big and small groups in the one-on-one teaching. There's going to be a lot of moving parts in terms of how one interacts with children on a daily basis. And so it's helpful for families to understand what we mean when we say big and small groups or one-on-one. And also to know all the partners that you're going to be working with, because you're not going to be doing this in a bubble. There will be paraprofessionals, the ABAs, speech, OT, and it's important for family members to also know who to expect to see on a Zoom call and who to expect to hear from. Also, it would be helpful if you have one person taking ACE data during small and whole group times. It's helpful to kind of think about who's responsible for what so that it's clear when you get on your remote learning. And then there are specialists, and every school specialist is going to look different in terms of how one interacts and what the time schedule is around specialists. But that's also going to be part of your day, and it's important for you to figure out ways to be clear on expectations with family members and children so that when they're on with specialists, it's consistent. The chart you see on your right is also helpful for families in terms of thinking about routines during the day, whether it's within a school day or whether it's before or after school. Routines and structures are really important for children as they move through this remote learning. Even when we go to hybrid, they will be spending 3 days a week at home. So having ways for families to organize their day in terms of structure is really helpful.
So many of you may be familiar with the Focus Curricula Resource Folder. This is a folder that contains resources to support curricula access to children with varied learning needs. So it has resources related to curricula content from pre-K up to second grade. The bulk of these resources have been developed by Boston Public Schools speech and language therapists and classroom teachers. The folder includes the adapted books that we referenced earlier and connected comprehension supports for each unit, along with visual supports for play activities. As you can see here, the little girl has a visual support for sorry, taking care of babies. And we have some literacy activity examples here as well. We have some support for interacting with the books directly. Again, play activities, and for drawing and writing, visual supports to scaffold drawing and writing activities for children. Here's an example of a writing activity from first grade. We've also updated the folder to include remote learning resources such as these. These are examples from first and second grade classrooms to support more independent learning at home. Over here on the left, the technology-free reading menu and the technology-free spelling menu. And then here we have another example of a teacher who's created a Bitmoji classroom. This is a K0, K1 ABA strand teacher. And here she's provided copies, recorded copies of some of the Unit 1 read alouds. And children or families can click on one of these. I'll click on Peter's chair here. And then it will take them to a recorded version of the book. So they can have some choice about which book they want to listen to, and it's kind of fun clicking right on the library that's provided on the screen.
Peter's Chair, written
There we go.
and illustrated by Ezra Jack Keats.
Nope, sorry about that. Might have to listen to Peter's chair for a minute.
Stretched as
Okay. So if you don't yet have access to this Focus Curricula Resource folder, the link is included on the slide deck, or you can reach out to one of us, to a coach from the department. We do again ask that the contents of this folder not be shared outside of Boston Public Schools while we work out terms of agreement for each of the resources that is in that folder. So before we go to closing, I just did want to mention that there are a few teachers that have contributed to this presentation that will be part of our live session. Their names are listed here in addition to the names of Marie and I and Karen Silver.
So we're glad you joined us today on our first attempt of a recorded professional development session. We want you to know that this is just the beginning, that some of the things to come will be potential coffee hours with teachers in sub-separate classrooms, continued additions to the resources that we've provided with you for today, because as we continue along the lines of remote learning, we know that all of you are providing us with really great examples of how we can do this better and better each time. So as we move forward in this school year, we will continue to add to the resources and continue to support you in any way we can. But those are two ways we'd like to start with potential coffee hours. You can always email us, and then we will be updating resources. So we thank you for joining us today. If you would like to receive your PDPs for professional development hours for this session, please complete this exit ticket. There will be a link to this PowerPoint, so you will have access to everything in the slide deck as well.
Thank you, everybody. We look forward to working together this year, and good luck with the start of school next week.